What's up, everybody? This is the inaugural version of Hindsight is 2020 in vlog and podcast format. I'm your host, LaRa Stephan, DFS, on Twitter, on Instagram. On Roto Grinders, you can find me at LaRa Stephan, simply LaRa Stephan. For you that don't know, it means the king in French. I can speak French almost fluently. So, couldn't find King Stephan on Instagram, so I had to go with LaRa, King Stephan in French. So, this vlog, the Hindsight is 2020 vlog, is going to cover my thoughts post-event on the UFC events for DraftKings. I do the word around the Chevy in the parking lot pre-event for the event, and then after that I do the Hindsight is 2020 on Roto Grinders as a blog. But now I'm still going to start doing the vlog, word around the Chevy vlog and Hindsight is 2020 vlog. So I did the daily fantasy MMA podcast with Brett Apley. I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed being able to run over my thoughts in real time with somebody. And so I'm gonna start doing my own now and producing my own. So let me get into this real quick. Usually the blog consists of my analysis post fight of the ownerships, biggest successes and disappointments, and biggest regrets and glad eyes. So the projected ownerships kind of shocked me because Conor McGregor was well below the Ronda Rousey line of 65%. And I thought he'd smash that this weekend and be owned anywhere from 65 to 80%, something crazy. Because I thought people were just so big on the Conor McGregor hype that they would be all over him. He was only owned 58%, well below the Ronda Rousey line. Holly Holm was higher owned than I thought, and so were all the other $10,700 to $11,000 fighters. They had a higher ownership than I was expecting. They had ownerships of Holly Holm had 42% ownership, and then everybody else from $10,700 to $11,000, Brandon Thatcher, Vitor Miranda, they had ownerships of over 20%. I was shocked by that. I thought it'd be a really, really heavy, top-heavy ownership. And then people like Miranda would be in there in the 15% and Thatch 15%. And I thought that Alir Latifi and Eric Silva would have really high ownerships. But one ownership that shocked me was Amanda Nunes at 35%. I guess her fantasy points per game had people heavy on her. And the fact that she was a favorite had people really heavy on her. Usually on DraftKings fantasy points per game, you ever want to know who wants to be the highest owned? Go look at the fantasy points per game, and that's going to tell you a lot of the story, unless somebody's a huge Vegas favorite. Most people don't watch the fights. They're not familiar with the fighters like me and other people, so they go by the Vegas odds and then the fantasy points per game. So if you want to project ownerships and get a feel for what everybody else is doing, check that out. That usually tells the tape, and that's why Nunes had an ownership that was pretty much on fleek this weekend for how much value there was in other places. Nate Diaz had a good ownership of like over 20%. Kind of shocked by that. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not shocked. He's a name and he was bottom of the barrel price. And that's all that shocked me concerning ownerships. Ishihara was very low owned at 16%. I think he should have been more highly owned. Bahar Dizada, I wasn't expecting too much out of him necessarily. So I'm not shocked his ownership wasn't that high. Darren Elkins was one of the biggest successes of the night. Let's just go right into the biggest successes. Darren Elkins scored 95 points in the decision. That means he landed over 100 significant strikes in 3 rounds. Skelly faded way harder than I thought he ever would. And Elkins racked up the points. 95 points in a decision. Whoa. That's crazy. So he scored, he's like one of the MVPs on the night. Only had a 10% ownership. Glad I had him on my entries though. I really was liking him in that spot. Didn't pick him to win. I thought Skelly had the better striking, and he did until he gassed out. So What do you say? But I played Elkins more than Skelly, so glad I did what I said you all should do out there. Nate Diaz, biggest success on the night, cheapest fighter, highest points per dollar at a 111.5. Bahar Dizada, second biggest success on the night at 104 points. Elkins, third biggest at 95 points. And Jason Sago was the biggest success on the night at 114 points. Big success. Did really well. The biggest disappointments on the night go to the highest price fighters on the night: Holly Holm, Brandon Thatch, and Conor McGregor. Those were the highest price fighters on the night, and none of them scored over 35 points. So, really big disappointment there. Really strange night. A lot of dogs won, and I thought this would be a real favorites heavy fight card. But Jesus, like from $10,000 to $11,000, only 4 fighters won. So Alir Latifi, Corey Anderson, Miranda, and Sago were the only fighters to win that were more than $10,000. Everybody else lost. That is wild. And then from 8,400 to 8,900, Bahar Dizada, Nate Diaz, Maisha Tate, and Ishihara won. The only losers were who was the only losers in that? Was Guimaraes at 8,800, and I can't think of the other fighter that was down there in the dumpster. But, yeah, it was like you had to have 3 of the biggest dogs on the card to have big success last night. It's crazy. Or you also had to have a strange combination of fighters. Strange combination. Who would think Darren Elkins, Bahar Dizada, Diaz, Sago, and Miranda? That's a winning lineup? Yes. I mean, it's not crazy. Not really, because those are close fights. But would you really like put that on the entry for real? With all the about like with our guy Latifi here and Eric Silva there and Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko and all the fights you expect to finish, you really gonna pick all those guys? I mean, you could have, but if I was gonna go with a bottom heavy strategy, those fighters were in it, but Holly Holm and Conor McGregor on the top, so that would have tanked for me. So it was a tough night to do well. I'm glad I left Conor McGregor out of my lineups completely. I'm glad I played Diaz at the bottom of so many of my lineups. Him and Ishihara, those were the bottom of my lineups. I wish I would have put them both together, but I chose to hedge fights in between $9,000 and $10,000. I wasn't expecting much value at the very bottom, but I wish I would have put those guys together, Ishihara and Diaz, because those were my 2 on bottom roster picks. I didn't put them together on nothing, because if I would have, it would have tanked anyway, because McGregor and Holm would have been on top of that. Glad I played Darren Elkins like I did. Him and Shevchenko were my favorite $9,000 fighters, and Sanchez, and I'm glad I played Sago on my where I took out the whole top of the price range, $10,700 to $11,000, and I played everybody less than that. I'm glad I had Sago and Corey Anderson and Latifi. So I had 3 out of your 4 $10,000 success fighters on my entries, on one entry. So I wish Latifi would have finished, but hey, he won the fight, so that was good. Biggest regrets, playing Eric Silva at 100% rate. I picked Nordine Taleb to win the fight initially. Went back, started looking at tape, and started saying, how is Taleb going to hang with this guy? He beat Mike Brown up like he did. I thought either Silva's going to finish it early or Taleb is going to grind out of the win late. Silva he's not even aggressive early anymore, so I don't even know what he's worth anymore or where his career is going to go. He looked good on a scale. My whole thing about his heaviness of playing him was, if he looks good on the scale, we're going to play him heavy. If he looks bad, then Taleb should be able to win the fight. I ended up looking at the film and talking to Brett on the Daily Fantasy Podcast, being like, this is Silva's fight, and I left Taleb out. So I overthought that whole thing. That's my biggest regret. Played Latifi a little too heavy, but I thought that was his fight to lose. I thought he was going to be able to outstrike Valenti, maybe out-wrestle him, outwork him. He did. He didn't get a finish. I played him too heavy. I shouldn't have been heavy on him and Silva, but I thought that they were going to definitely, I thought that was the key play of the night. I should have played Taleb, though. That would have been, I don't know why I didn't do that. I left Bahar Dizada out. Sorry I did that. Had it in mind to play him, but left him out. Because I wanted to go with Elkins, Ishihara, and Diaz. I didn't think that many people on the bottom would win, realistically. So I was like, let's not go too much on this bottom, because we're going to need these finishes at the top. I was expecting Holm to finish. I thought McGregor had a good chance to finish. I was expecting Miranda to finish. I thought Anderson was going to dominate. I thought Thatch might finish. So I was like, forget the bottom. Let's get good on the top. Then let's hedge these $9,000 to $10,000 fights like Nunes and Latifi and Elkins and Skelly. And then let's get us Ishihara or Diaz on the bottom. That was my thought process. And it didn't end up working like that. Like, the middle wasn't that juicy. The bottom was the juicy part. And you couldn't have told me that before the fight. So, yeah. Those are all my thoughts on the fight card. My best entry was 333 points. My only loss on that entry was Eric Silva. It was Corey Anderson. It was Jason Sago, Alir Latifi, Silva, and Nate Diaz. And I should have hedged Eric Silva. That would have given me 420-something points. And a pretty big get in most of the contests. But, yeah. Not mad at my roster construction. I made good decisions. I didn't have too much home. Left McGregor totally out. I did everything that I should have done. Only thing I regret is that, yeah, man, I regret that I didn't have Taleb in there like I wanted. I was thinking up to the last minute, I need to get Taleb in here. I need to get him in here. Wasn't expecting him to finish, but should have had him in here. And, yeah, I think, Miesha Tate. Yeah, I said to fade her. I don't regret that. She only scored 24 points outside of her 40-point win bonus. She lost, 3.5 out of the 5 rounds. Not taking anything away from her victory. That was a hell of a victory that she pulled off. Congratulations to her. But the fight went exactly like I thought. And from a fantasy standpoint, she didn't land many significant strikes. She was only 2 for 9 on her takedowns. So what did I say pre-fight? What did I say on the Daily Fantasy Podcast? She's not going to hit many takedowns, and she's not going to outstrike Holly Holm. And she didn't do either of those things. I was exactly right. And she still won the fight, but she scored below 70 points. So out of the bottom of the barrel fighters, Nate Diaz, Bahar Dizada, and Ishihara, she was the worst play by at least 20 points in every case. And in the case of her versus Bahar Dizada and Nate Diaz, almost 50 points. So I'm definitely not mad for saying fade her. You were better off going with Diaz or Bahar Dizada or Ishihara. Those were much better plays. And the way the fights went, I mean, she was the least dominant fighter out of all those fighters. All those fighters finished their fights in dominant fashion. Miesha Tate snuck through the back door. No, taking nothing away from her. She fought great. Holly Holm's jiu-jitsu looked terrible. Brendan Schaub said on the his podcast, A Fighter and a Kid, she neglects her jiu-jitsu. He had heard rumblings of that. I didn't believe that after the Ronda Rousey fight. I believe that now. She's good with her wrestling defense. She's good with, of course, her striking. But why she leave her jiu-jitsu out? You can't just prepare and say, I'm going to stay away from the ground. It could happen. And she was obviously unprepared to get back to her feet or get to guard. You know, she was bigger and stronger because she was like out muscling Maisha from the bottom, which was weird to watch because Maisha Tate has good top control. And like Holly Holm was just like shrimping and muscling her way. I was like, man, this is not technically right, but it sure is working because she's so big and strong, I guess. So Holly Holm was not prepared. She looked about 80% prepared, and she won 80% of the fight. But in the fight game, that didn't work out. So I was very disappointed in Holly. I was very shocked by her lack of preparedness in the areas of the jiu-jitsu game. There's no reason she shouldn't be the champion right now, but 80% can't do that. That's everything in hindsight. It was hard to like make good cash last night because a lot of things you just wouldn't expect it to play out quite like that. Like there were so many upsets last night. I mean, Jesus. And then there were so many finish upsets. Nate Diaz and Bahar Dezada finished. They finished. And Holly Holm and Conor McGregor lost. Man, that's tough to like. You know anything is possible, but you don't expect that many disasters to happen, or not disasters, but that many big rumblings to happen on one card. So very hard card to make big cash on. I only have a few post-fight regrets. I went over those, but thanks for tuning in to this Hindsight is 2020, and I hope to you tune into my next podcast and vlogs, and I'm going to have a word around the Chevy. I'm trying to get a cartoon. I got to go on Fiverr.com or something and get my word around the Chevy cartoon format going so I can do my 5 picks of the week or whatever. I'm going to get a format for that I can make up for every card. Trying to compete with Tommy Tohold. So, thanks for tuning in to me, Leroy Stephan, DFS. Go check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram. I always play DraftKings with Leroy Stephan, Roto Grinders, Leroy Stephan. And, thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.